Welcome to Book to Blueprint, where powerful books become practical blueprints for real life. You do not need more information, you need execution. This is Book to Blueprint. Today, we're diving into Rolf Dobelli's The Art of Thinking Clearly, but we're not just going to talk about the ideas in the book, we're actually going to build a practical blueprint, something you can start using to make way better decisions, like right now. Let's dive in. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you stuck with a project or maybe a job long after you knew deep down it was a sinking ship? And you probably justified it, right? You told yourself, well, I've already put in so much time, or I've invested too much money to walk away now. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, then you, my friend, have fallen for the sunk cost fallacy. It's that little voice in your head that whispers, but I've already spent so much, or we've come too far to quit now. But here's the thing the book makes crystal clear. Rational thinking means you have to ignore what's already gone. The only thing that should matter is where you go from here, the potential costs and benefits moving forward. To help us do exactly that, we've laid this all out in a 6-part blueprint. We're going to start with the goal, unpack the one big idea you need to know, then define the operating system for your brain. After that, we'll get into the step-by-step implementation plan, install some new habits, and finally, cover the common mistakes you've got to avoid. So, what's the actual goal here? What are we trying to achieve? Well, it's surprisingly simple. The book's big argument is that we don't need more genius ideas to have a better life. We just need to stop being so irrational. This whole blueprint is designed to help you sidestep those mental traps, the self inflicted errors, so you can make much better choices in your career, with your money, and in your life. Okay, so how do we do that? It all comes down to this core philosophy, a really powerful concept called via negativa. At its heart, it's all about focusing on what to avoid. It's the art of subtraction, not addition. Think about it this way. You know the story of Michelangelo's David? When the Pope asked him how on earth he created such a masterpiece from a block of marble, his answer was simple. He said he just removed everything that was not David. He wasn't focused on what to add, he was focused entirely on what to take away. And that's the big idea in a nutshell. Look, we often don't know for sure what's going to make us successful or happy. But as Dobelli points out, we often know with absolute certainty what destroys success and happiness. So by eliminating those cognitive errors, by chipping away at everything that isn't clear thinking, the good stuff, the upside, well, it'll take care of itself. All right, so how do we actually put this idea into practice? We need a set of rules, right? A kind of mental operating system to guide our decisions. Let's dig into the core principles that are going to govern this new way of thinking. Okay, here are the core rules. Rule 1. Thinking, I mean real rational thinking, is hard work. It burns a ton of energy, so save it for the big important decisions. Rule 2, for the small stuff, like what to eat for lunch, just let your intuition take the wheel. It's fine. Rule 3, you have to be brutally honest about the limits of your own expertise. The investor Charlie Munger calls this your circle of competence, the areas you truly, deeply understand. Rule 4, inside that circle, your intuition is actually a really powerful and reliable guide. You should trust it. And finally, rule 5, for any critical decision that's outside that circle, that's when you have to be slow, methodical, and just ruthlessly rational. Okay, so we've got the rules down. Now we need a practical toolkit. Let's move to the implementation plan and see how all this builds into a concrete set of actions. Think of it like a pilot's pre-flight checklist, but for your major life decisions. Here's the 4-step process, nice and simple. First, you have to clearly define the exact choice you need to make. Second, you run that decision through a checklist of the most common thinking errors, like that sunk cost fallacy we started with. Third, you conduct something called a pre-mortem. And don't worry, we'll get into exactly what that is in a second. And finally, only after that tough process, you make your choice. This little table makes the whole process super practical. For any big decision, you run the checklist. How do you know if you succeeded? Well, you caught yourself about to make a biased decision and you stopped it. Next, you do a pre-mortem. It's a brilliant technique from psychologist Gary Klein. You imagine it's a year from now and your plan has just failed spectacularly. Then you write down every single reason you can think of for why it failed. It's such a powerful way to see risks you would have otherwise been blind to. And maybe most important of all, you have to measure your success by the quality of your process, not the final outcome. Why? Because sometimes you can make a fantastic decision and just get unlucky. It happens. So having an operating system and a plan is great, but they're totally useless unless you actually use them. To make this kind of clear thinking automatic, you've got to build habits that reinforce the system, week in and week out. Here is a super simple tracker you can use to build these mental muscles. Every day, practice bias spotting. Just try to find one thinking error in a news article or in something someone says in a meeting. This trains your brain to see them everywhere. Then, once a week, do a decision review. Look back at a choice you made. Was your process solid? And finally, this one is an absolute game changer. Once a week, actively try to disprove one of your own deeply held beliefs. Go looking for evidence that you're wrong. This is how you build the strength to fight our natural tendency to just confirm what we already think. Now, as you start putting all this into practice, there are a few major pitfalls that can easily trip you up. So let's talk about the most common mistakes people make and how you can safeguard this new operating system you're building. The number one biggest mistake is confirmation bias. Our brains are hardwired to look for evidence that proves we're right. We love it. The antidote is what's called active disconfirmation. The book brings up Charles Darwin, who knew his own brain would actively try to forget any evidence that went against his theories. So whenever he came across an observation that didn't quite fit, he made it a special priority to write it down immediately. And here are 3 other big pitfalls to watch out for. First, the outcome bias. We've touched on this, but it is so crucial. Judge your process, not the result. Next is the story bias. Our brains love a good story, but a really compelling narrative can easily hide terrible logic. Always ask yourself, what part of the story are they not telling me? And finally, the overconfidence effect. We all do it. We systematically think we know more than we actually do. The simplest fix? Just be humble. So after going through the whole system, the habits and the pitfalls, here's the crucial point. It really all boils down to one ultimate rule from the author. For the big, life-altering, consequential decisions, slow down, be rational, and use the checklist. For everything else, all the small stuff, just save your mental energy and trust your gut. And that brings us to the end of our blueprint. But remember, this isn't just theory, it's a toolkit for action. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What's the first big, consequential decision in your life right now that you're going to run through this very process? If you have a book in mind that should be added to our list, comment below. If this blueprint helped you, subscribe, like, and build with us. More blueprints are coming. Stay intentional, stay consistent. We are doing this one book at a time. And remember, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So share this with them and grow together. Real progress becomes stronger when it is shared. Build your life one blueprint at a time. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you do.